This is the talk of Music City real estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monte Moore with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com.
Monte!
Carey Ann, man, I'm excited about today. I'll tell you what.
Hey, look, there's another blonde in the house.
Another blonde in the house.
Take it over. I love it.
Chrissy Amundsen, thanks for flying all the way in from Las Vegas to be here with us today.
Yes.
I wouldn't miss it.
That's awesome. And also today we have one of my favorite thinkers on the planet.
Out of the box thinkers,
we live in a world where it seems like thinking maybe has been put on the back shelf or something, and Rob Hahn, we're grateful that you're with us today. I don't know of anybody who's a deeper thinker, and you covers such really important conversations and topics within the real estate community. I thank you for all your work, sir.
Oh, Monte, thank you so much. That's very, very kind. And I know people probably can't see us because this is a voice podcast, but I am not a blonde. I just want to make that very clear. But I am sort of jealous.
There you go.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I've been a fan ever since you spoke for the Realty One Group broker owner meeting about 3 years ago, I believe, in California. Rob, we have a conviction that before people believe the message, they have to believe the messenger. Can you share a little bit about you and your background that qualifies you to have a conversation about the topic of real estate and where we're heading? Because I want to say one more time, from my perspective of almost 40 years in the industry, I don't know of anybody who has, I think, as clear a thought of the future of our business, and nobody knows what tomorrow is going to bring, let alone in the real estate industry. But I want to say from my perspective that you are someone I will always follow, because I think you're always looking at all the dynamics of what's happening, and you're not necessarily always going with the flow of what might be popular.
And again, thank you so much. I have a really bizarre background in history, but I'll try and keep it to the Reader's Digest version. I basically went to law school, decided didn't want to be a lawyer, became a magazine editor. From there, I became a founder of a .com1 startup. And then was a victim of 9/11 attacks. The company got destroyed, so I went into real estate industry. And from there, I just realized this is such a great industry. And, coming from more of a tech background, I thought it was amazing. But that legal background comes in handy for a lot of the stuff that I've done over the years. 2009 is when I went out. So before that, my introduction to residential real estate was with Realogy. I guess now they're called Anywhere. They were called Sendit when I was working with them. And then I went out on my own doing consulting work in 2009. So I've been working in the industry as a consultant since 14 years.
Okay.
13 years, because I became an entrepreneur once again very recently, which I think we're going to talk about.
But most of my work
most of my work was with realtor associations, large MLSs, national tech companies, startups, national chains, brokerages. I've pretty much worked with, just about everyone we can think of, name, and I've been following the industry ever since. The thinker piece, I really do appreciate it, but, I've been a blogger, I've been sort of a writer for my entire life. And when I got into the industry, I just felt like, what's the point in just sort of, towing the party line, if you will. And I got very lucky. The name of my blog, as you know, is Notorious Rob. And it's become notorious. And I just felt like, look, I'm just going to call it like I see it. And I think I've been very lucky in being one of the very few people who can do that, because my clients hire me despite knowing what my opinions, are on some things. So that was, again, from the consulting side. Now I'm an entrepreneur back again. And I feel like there's really no point in gaslighting people. There's no point in sort of not talking about things as we really see it, and that's kind of where we're at. And I think as we get into conversation today, hopefully that'll come through, that I'm really just about, like, I could be wrong, but I'm never going to tell you something that just ain't so. I'd rather be wrong than make stuff up. just because it's comfortable lies, that doesn't help anybody.
Because it's popular. And I love that about you, Rob. I really do. And you do always qualify, this is my opinion. I may be wrong. But what I have noticed as I've been following you for about 3 years now is that it seems like most things you hit pretty accurately, and
So.
this whole lawsuit coming down the pike or now is a class action lawsuit is certainly something we all need to be paying attention to. And that's where I feel like I had a leg up on, the information agents were getting from Inman or Realogy or wherever, not Realogy, but anyhow,
Yeah.
The point is, but I feel like I had a leg up on what was really happening because I was following your post because, again, they weren't in the flow. But anyways, for all those who are listening, I do encourage you to tune in here right now, especially because you're going to hear about a new platform that it circumvents. It's not part of the future lawsuit and the changes that are needing to be made. And we all have this habit of dialing into, this most popular radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? Well, this is something in it for you that could, help you avoid challenges in the future and be ready to pivot. Carey Ann is honestly the one who taught me that word pivot because, she's in the mortgage industry. She's had to pivot like crazy over the years.
Yeah.
And I feel like as real estate agents and professionals, rather, not just agents, we try to differentiate between the two, that realtors need to always be paying attention so that we can pivot as well.
Well, we learned from previous businesses that if you're not thinking constantly 2 steps ahead, and
Right.
kind of moving in the direction of where possibly the industry is going to go, we don't know yet if that's where it is going to go, but it's great to already be prepared and already be, on the forefront of what is to come. And I love all things that I was able to learn from Rob the other day on our meeting. And I've actually just been texting and kind of doing my homework on the backside too, because I think it's really important when you combine the two most a vendor that's the most needed. Usually we solve the biggest problem when it comes to real estate, the money piece. Not everybody has cash, and we want to grant. And I think your platform opens up more opportunity, and covers all fair housing, which I think was a huge win when I learned. So I'm excited to talk more about it for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's, can you do the 3,000 foot view, Rob? We all, as you know, we have Chrissy in the house, and she has probably brought to you some of the best questions, I think. She's made a few bullet points for us that you're probably going to want to get a list of, but.
Yeah, I do.
Two-pager.
Chrissy's a superstar.
The next one.
All right, so let me give you the elevator pitch. What we have built, we built a company, a website, it's really a utility called Decenter Property Exchange. And we call it DPX for short. And Decenter spelled the British way with an RE because it was kind of a pun. It's decent RE, right? And I said,
Oh, wow.
All about that.
So
I didn't catch that
real
part.
estate.
Decent.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's all coming together.
That's right. So what we're doing is we've created an auction-based multiple listing service. And it's important that it be both. It's transparent online auction. So think eBay, think bring a trailer, things that we're all used to. And I've always thought, literally from the beginning when I first got into residential real estate, that open, transparent auctions are actually the best and ideal way to buy and sell houses. On the buy side, it's very obvious because you have the full transparency. You know kind of who you're up against. You know what you have to do to actually buy the home of your dreams. On the seller side, the transparency actually helps as well because it turns out you're going to get market price. You're never going to leave any money on the table. And if your perception of what your house is actually worth is out of sync with the market, don't blame your agent. It's not about the CMA. Put it onto the marketplace, and the market will tell you what your house is worth right now, given whatever conditions, given the macro conditions, given all of that. So I think it ends up being something that's beneficial for the consumers for sure. For the professionals, the MLS piece I think was important because it's very, very hard to do some of these auction related stuff on top of existing MLS rails. And since I'm an expert in the MLS space, that's been my clients for over 13 years, I felt like the only way to do this is by sort of launching our own MLS that doesn't have a lot of the restrictions and rules.
And not governed by higher powers. And not governed by higher powers.
We are. And I think it's all about sort of transparency and being fair to everybody. The lawsuit piece became really important because as I was thinking about this idea around how do I want to do this, right? What I realized is because I knew, like you mentioned, Monte, I've been following the lawsuits from the day they were filed. I thought that by shifting away from the cooperation compensation model where the seller pays the listing agent and the listing agent shares it, as an auction platform, we charge a buyer premium. And that buyer premium is set equal basically to the commission. And then we will pay the agents. What that means for the seller is that they do not pay a commission if they're doing the transaction on our platform, right? On our MLS. If you do it through the normal MLS, so you're in Nashville, so if you do it through RealTrax, hey, you got to comply with the rules of RealTrax that have nothing to do with us. If you do it through our platform, everyone involved has to waive all commissions, and then we will make sure the agents are compensated. And I think with respect to all the changes and all the threats, all the things that are happening with the lawsuits, my view is this is an interesting, dare I say, clever way to make sure that we can protect compensation for the professionals who work their asses off, let's be honest, and deserve to get compensated. And I think this is a way to really protect that while bringing sort of the benefits of transparency and, sort of open market to the consumers.
I love it.
That's my elevator pitch. I know there are many, many questions. I know there's a lot to go into.
Yeah, and that was a great overview. Really, truly is. And I'm excited about it, after 40 years in the business and this dramatic change that might be coming down the pike here. And who knows when? It could be tomorrow. It could be, 5 years from now. Who knows for sure? But I think it's going to be sooner than later. To have a fallback position like this or one that we can kind of get in sync with now in case we do need it sooner than later, I think would be a wise thing to do. And I love the idea of the transparency because how many times has a buyer seen the listing pop up as sold and closed and then said, well, hell, if I'd known it was going to only go for $2,000 more than what I offered, I would have paid that in a heartbeat. And I think with that in mind that a lot of times, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of times the seller would actually get more for the house because when we get to that point where as a consumer that we're emotionally connected to the outcome of that experience, we reduce it to the ridiculous, which in this case is going to be, do you really want that refrigerator, sweetheart? I mean, do you really want, you stop dicking around over the small things. Well, it's only $1,000 more and we can have this house. I mean, that's I think going to be the mindset. We still have those inherent challenges with that as far as the home has to appraise and those kind of things, but I love the transparency part of it.
And a huge part of my motivation for doing this, I very distinctly remember, again, I'm a consultant, so I was speaking to brokers and agents and MLS execs all through 21, all through 2020. And like in 2020, I think I was speaking to one agent who mentioned that she had written 37 offers for one of her buyer clients. 37. And like just a heartbreak. Like forget the money, like leave the money aside for a second. This family, they had like 2 kids. They wanted to move to Raleigh and, they fall in love with the house. They're like, okay, what's the list price? Okay, it's listed for $380. Let's go 10,000 over asking. Didn't get it. Okay, like heartbreak. Next house, we fall in love with the next house. Okay, you know what? Let's go 30,000 over asking. Didn't get it. Why didn't we get it? No answer. They don't know.
Right.
It's just that aspect of what said, you know what? Transparency would have really, really helped.
It's such a win-win.
Reduce all the pain. Yeah, the heartache, the pain. And this is the thing I think a lot of consumers don't quite understand. Almost every buyer agent I know who's worth a damn. And
thanks for qualifying that.
Preface the fact that, correct, that there are some people in our industry who frankly should not be helping anybody buy or sell the most important thing in their lives.
Amen.
But every great buyer agent I know, they genuinely care about their clients.
That's right.
They genuinely want to see their clients happy, and it hurts them when they see this, sort of the awful sort of transaction, how things have to be done. My take is, look, the technology exists now. The traditional model, the offer and acceptance via the MLS, like that was actually the best, most transparent way of doing things for the technology that existed back in 1930.
Correct. Correct.
That was actually.
I've heard we've updated that.
Exactly. I'm saying, look, we have the internet. We like these things are real. Why don't we take advantage and sort of advance that? And that's really what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
No, I do love it, because there's been, when you think about all the extra, I mean, there were times where we'd get, 50, 60 offers on a house, and it's a lot of extra emotion and challenges for everybody involved, not just the agent carrying the buyer around and having to deliver that heartbreaking news. Then you had other things happening where people were putting in offers on more than one house, and those kind of games going on. And I got it, but it was very frustrating when you find out that person, because you were always buying the messenger before we ever go look at the offer. We're buying the professionalism of that agent, and then their trust. They're getting us to trust them, and only to find out that, hey, they just put out 3 offers. Because their client's only here for the weekend. I mean, there was so many dynamics there in that environment that this kind of thing, if we were following this kind of around, it just wouldn't have happened.
So I think a lot of people are going to start to ask the question, because I would, and I think Chrissy and I gave you like 7,000 questions the first go around the other day. So again, we're working through Real Tracks because we are here in Middle Tennessee, right? And so you're an overlay to that, or a complement to, right? It's not one or the other. It's just a complement to.
That's right.
Right. And so
that's right.
At that point, I can decide to list on this platform for the same price, or I can come less because it is, in quotations, more of an auction and I'm trying to gain more traction, or does it have to be similar?
So the way to think about this is we're 2 separate MLSs. So you all, and this is our expectation, like agents, you belong to Real Tracks. You have to comply with the rules and policies and regulations of Real Tracks. We have nothing to do with that. We have nothing to say about that other than please comply. Like, don't break those rules. On our system, we have far fewer rules. In fact, I think our rule book is like 10 pages long versus 160, something like that. So you could do whatever you like. We're not in the business of telling brokers and agents how to run their business. We do have some advice. So the thought is you're listed in Real Tracks for whatever you want to list it for, right? But I do think it's probably smart to set the list price at the minimum bid price, which is where you want to generate as much interest as possible, right? In our system, we have the notion of a reserve price. So let's say you do a CMA for a seller and you think, okay, look, based on all the comps, this house is probably worth $500,000.
Okay.
Cool. Set the reserve price at $500 in our system. List it for $250, $300, because that's going to generate a ton of interest.
That's so low. Right? That's what the agents are going to say. Go ahead.
Right. But here's the thing: whether it's in the traditional system or in our system, that house is never going to sell for $300. Because you're going to get offers, from buyers who are like, wow, this is a great house for that money. Let's put in offers. So it's never going to go for that anyway. So what's the harm? If it doesn't reach reserve in our system, you do not have to sell. And we just let the buyer know, hey, this house has hit reserve or it hasn't. So the buyer's not under any delusions. Hey, I'm definitely going to get this house for $350. No, you ain't, because reserve has not been met. Right.
And it actually tells them that when they're
reserve.
It actually tells them that when they're putting the offer in. Right.
That's
so right. It has to hit reserve.
It has to hit reserve in order for the seller to be required to sell.
I see. Okay.
Now, the seller may choose to take the top bid if reserve has not been hit, because that is going back to the sort of market price. This is the market telling you. You could say your house is worth $500. I'm sorry, the top bid is $480. And then it's up to the seller and the listing agent. It's your host. It's your home. It's your money. You decide whether you want to take that $480 offer or not. You don't have to. You could just say, yeah, you know what? Let's go off the market, do some further renovations, maybe, repaint the house and let's relist it. We don't have a problem with anything like that. We're just not in the business telling people how they should run their business. So
that's nice. So you have the option to not even stress about it. If it doesn't hit reserve, you can just back away, or you can take the highest bid. That's good. So your low bid or your low start number is just a trigger, right? Just to kind of ignite.
It's a marketing price is how we like to look at it, because we teach our agents to come in a little bit lower, give it some runway, and build the price up rather than let it sit and have to come down. Have multiple people interested in it. We've been doing a similar type approach for years, but not with the transparency that you're bringing to the party.
So question though, Monte, just for education purposes. So on a regular RealTrax, if you did that, and let's say in your expectation, it should go for, the 500, right? But you only got them to get up to, 450. I'm using that as an example on the list scenario. Are you forced through RealTrax to sell at that price?
No,
you're not.
You're not.
Okay. So that's good to know too. Very good. So again, there's no compensation or commission rolled into currently that 500 reserve.
So the way our system works is we shift the commission basically from the seller to the buyer, right? Which in fact is more transparent because guess what? The buyer's the only one bringing any money to the table. So the buyer's the one who's actually paying the commission today anyway, because the seller's going to take that commission into account as they're doing the net sheet. And we all know agents, you sit down with the seller with the net sheet and say, okay, here's what your net's going to be. So all we're doing is shifting it. So what we'll do is we'll take the winning bid dollar amount and then we'll add the buyer premium and the contract price will be at that sort of bid amount plus buyer premium. That still has to appraise, just like today. Right. When you think about it, though, if I'm selling a house today and I think it's worth 500, my net's going to be, let's say, 475, something like that. It still has to appraise for 500. So in our system, I think the way it will work is people will bid 475 and they get up to 500. Right?
I agree.
And all of that is conversation I think listing agents and buyer agents, the professionals could really help their clients understand. It does take a bit of education, no doubt about it. Do I think this is going to be, hey, the minute we launch in Nashville, 80% of people are going to go to I don't. I think it's going to be a small minority that are sort of advanced and forward thinking. Hey, let's give it a shot. Oh, I get it. Okay, I see how that works. I think that's how it's going to be. But what we're really trying to do is just make things more transparent. Otherwise, everything is the same. And as we talked about at our first meeting, Carey Ann, at least Fannie and Freddie are saying, look, you can capitalize the buyer premium. So it doesn't have the buyers to come out of pocket with that amount. And they recognize it's just shifting the commission as long as the buyer premium in an auction is reasonable. And again, when we set it equal to the commission rate, I think it's reasonable. Typical real estate auction sites charge 10 to 12% buyer premium. We're going out the gate with 5% because that's sort of the prevailing commission rate across the country. You can finance it, right? You just roll it into the price of the home. The exception to that, as you pointed out, is I don't know if VA allows that or not. And I think that's something I'm investigating.
I don't think they will.
I'd love your take on that.
But it does. Yeah, I don't think they will.
And we're double checking all of that. So we'll circle back with the updates on it because remember, I think where people might be getting confused too is you cannot finance commission in to the price currently as it stands. Because if that was the case, we would do that all day, every day. And so we're double checking, that from a Fannie Freddie, also from a government, standpoint there. So we're all on the same page.
Chrissy, I know you have a list of...
I know for a fact that buyer premiums can be financed. Like Fannie actually has guidance around that. So that's how we're sort of helping get around it. Again, it is a clever sort of solution because we're an auction platform. We can charge a buyer premium. And when the buyer then has paid the buyer premium to us, now that is our money. And what we choose to do with it is nobody's business. And what we choose to do with it are to compensate the two professionals who helped that transaction sail through. So we're able to guarantee compensation to the agents without worrying about some of the commission-related lawsuits, without worrying about a lot of these types of issues.
Yeah, it's definitely an out-of-the-box idea, and I think that's why it could work, and it's why it takes someone with like a varied background to come up with that. We're so used to what we've been doing, and it's hard to think out of the box. So if the logistics of this work from an agent training standpoint, it's just how are those conversations now held with our clients? What do when we talk about pricing, we talk about writing the offer, it's just a different script.
Well, that's why I think we need to sit down and actually have a training on that process.
Absolutely.
So for those that are new to it, so this is what I see happening anyhow, and correct me where I'm wrong because I don't have the whole picture yet probably, but so you put your listing in MLS. At that point, you can, is this what you see happening, Rob, is direct somewhere in the realtor comments, direct it to this auction site that if you want this, this is how this home is going to be sold. I mean, back in the day when we went through the Great Depression, there were bank-owned properties that were dictating you had to go here. You started with MLS, and then you had to go here in order to put an offer on that property. It was maybe their platform or whatever. Is that what you're seeing happening?
That's kind of what I'm seeing happening, but it's an extension of the general rule that the listing agent controls the offer process, right?
Correct.
So in the private remarks in the MLS, you'll say, look, all offers due Thursday by 5 p.m. and then best and final due Monday, right? And then if I'm a buyer agent, I want to make an offer on that house, I have to comply with the listing agent's request.
Right.
Otherwise, the chances are the listing agent's not even looking at that offer, right? You have to use these forms. So to me, it's very, very similar. All we're saying is the listing agent would say, listen, if you want to make an offer on this property, we're doing it through Decenter. It's an open auction. Check it out. The important thing there is there's no application process. There's no fee. There's no monthly charge. Our site is literally free to use. And you guys have signed up for the website. So, it's not like your typical MLS with a 3-month application process and filling out forms and, application fees. There's none of that. It's free. It's just come in, sign up, register for free, use it. I think it's a lot easier than writing up an offer, right? The bidding process where you just go in, put in a number, click some buttons, and there you go. And then you will just work with your buyer client to make sure, hey, do you still want to, hey, you just got outbid. Do you want to go up? It's going to be another $5,000. Or we can accept this term that the seller has valued at $5,000. Like that sort of. We're not doing anything to disintermediate the agent. We think the agent serves a very, very important role. And like I mentioned, we're not a consumer website. We're a multiple listing service. We're a platform for brokers and agents to service their consumers and bring transparency to their lives.
Yeah. I love that part that you're working with the agents, that's how it all comes together. You're not trying to circumvent them.
The agent's necessary because they're facilitating putting this into the system, having that conversation about the value of those things, which is one of my favorite parts because there's a value to a closing time frame or leaving the refrigerator.
That's one of my favorite parts too, is a cash deal. Then the seller is looking at it with this much value. If it's let me stay for 30 days, this is the value. And I mean, I love that breakdown because we as brokers and agents out there, we know that there's advantages, but we've never put a dollar amount to that advantage. And it's hard to get the consumer sometimes to translate what we might feel that as is contract or that, it's a 7-day stay over after closing or whatever, what it really, how do we break that down in value? I love that part.
So the flip side, I think that's going to come about. I just think that this is just what's going to be. Is for years and years and years, we've been talking about, hey, buy a home because you buyer don't pay the commission, right?
That's been one of our problems though about this lawsuit.
Yeah, but they don't care about the lawsuit. That's your issue. That's not the buyer's issue, right? Meaning
we can't say that anymore though.
What?
We can't say that the seller pays the commission. We can't say that this is a free service.
Sure, but I'm just trying to say that the buyers don't. They don't. That's a real estate issue, right? Like on this, you know what I'm speaking on behalf of the buyer. So the buyer is now saying, "Hey, I've never had to pay anything. Now you want me to pay, and you want me to pay 5%, right? Type of thing." So just kind of talking through that, right? Because this is a podcast. That's what we do. Talk through all things. And so the script, like you're talking about, Chrissy, is we have to completely 180 degrees say what we have been saying. At the end of the day, 2 + 2 still equals 4, right? It's still equaling the same number. But the perception is that you're making me pay more for house A, right? Just because now you're taking my so-called price and or reserve price that the seller wants to net and then adding another 5%. What is the kind of script around, or what you think? Because I think you've been probably already talking and thinking through that on how to train and coach the agents on and or buyers on.
I think the answer is a buyer agent, and having that conversation with the buyer should just bring a net sheet with them, right? Because as a consumer, you don't know what a net sheet is. But once you see it, you realize, oh, the seller's definitely taking the commission into account. And I'm the only one bringing any money to the table. So guess what? I'm paying it through the higher price of the home. It ends up being the exact same, right? The flip side of it, so I think the conversation, listen, buyer, you're not paying any more than you are today.
Correct.
what you're getting for doing it through DPX is the transparency
and the certainty
of
whether you really want this house.
The certainty.
Yeah.
That's right. So in our system, in an open auction, you will never lose a home until you walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. It's like, oh my God, now the price is up to $525. Hey, honey, how much do we love this house? I know the kids love the backyard. We love the neighborhood, but it's at $525. Oh, we really love it. Okay, $530. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, we just got outbid again. Now we have to go to $540 if we want this house. You know what? That's too much. We're done. That's not heartbreak in the same way that we've dealt with over the last few years, right?
That's a choice.
It got too expensive, but hey, that's what the market says, and we are now going to walk away and look at our second choice or third choice. I think that's the way we'd have to explain it. Now, here's the thing, Connie. I'm 100% agree with you. Like, I can't carry on. I think it's going to take some time. I think a lot of buyers will just resist. Like, wait a minute, what? No, I'm not doing that. That's fine. It really is. We don't, just like, I liken this a lot to the first time I used Uber, right? I still remember it was in San Francisco, it's raining. And before I used it, I was like, so let me get this straight. What you want me to do is call a stranger on the internet and get into his car in a city that I don't know. Yeah, that's not happening. Until I used it. And I said, okay, no, this makes all the sense in the world, right? I think that's how it's going to be. I think it's going to take some of the early adopters to try it and realize, wow, yeah, this is transparent. No, I didn't pay any more for this house than I would have otherwise. And maybe it takes something like you see it in a bid on DPX and you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to be clever. I'm going to make the same offer through RealTrax, the traditional way, only to have the seller reject it because guess what? If I have to pay commission on this $500,000, it's only worth $475 to me. The bid on DPX for $500,000, that's worth $500,000 to me. It might take something like that for buyers and buyer agents for it to click. Again, we're not charging anyone anything extra. We're just shifting the commission from the seller to the buyer.
Yeah, and Rob, it's like you said, it's not going to be for all agents up front because there is a certain skill set to have this nuanced conversation around this. I mean, that's how innovation always is, right? It takes a certain level of education and training and time.
I think, I'm sure you've thought through this, but I'm trusting that there'll be examples, maybe a couple of video examples, and actually it won't be live because it'll be recorded, but where they can actually watch the price go up and the people involved. Or, I mean, is how transparent can you be as far as really showing people? I think personally, if I knew all homes were available like that, it would empower me as a buyer. I mean, I'd feel more certain that I wasn't overpaying because that's the biggest fear of the buyer is, am I overpaying for this house? Well, based on what I'm seeing here, apparently I'm not, because there's all these other people that are willing to pay that much as well or close to it.
That's right. And not only that, but you're not overpaying because the next bid up, if you want to win that house, like it's really laid out. It's too bad this is a podcast. I can't show you the demo which I showed you guys. Yeah. Like if you go on the website, there's literally, you can compare, like here's the previous bid, the winning bid right now, and how they got to be that winning bid between the purchase price and all the terms and conditions that they're accepting that the seller has said is worth whatever dollar amount to them. So you can sort of construct your bid to beat that bid. That's not overpaying. That is literally the market at work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, you guys have heard this story a few times.
Yeah.
The people on the podcast
haven't.
Haven't. So that's why I'm triggering the conversation.
No, I think that's really important.
Because I think they're going to ask those questions behind.
Absolutely.
Because the more education we provide, I think the better this is going to roll and continue to roll, out there. And like you said, I mean, times just change. I mean, to have to sign a CD 3 days prior to closing, what you talking about? And we do that all day, every day, now. So that's a big win. So how do I see as a consumer the homes on your site? Or are you saying that listing agent A says, you love my home, the bidding will be on site A? Is that how that's going to roll?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so we do have a website, decenterpx.com. And again, that's with RE. And we don't, so you know how MLSs don't even allow consumers in? We don't have that. Like, we don't distinguish. What we do is, if you want to represent somebody else, you have to be a licensed agent, and we will check your license, right? But you can come in as a consumer and just view everything that's for sale and look at all the bids. You can look all you want. If you want to make a bid, we require that you use a buyer agent.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Protection Act. What's that?
I said thank you for that, by the way.
It's you don't even have to thank me, because this is literally us trying to protect the consumer.
Right.
Because I've been in the industry for 12 years, 13 years, and I think I'm an expert in real estate. And I've always used a realtor for all of my transactions, because I don't know some of these. Like, I ran across something, I think it's on the site right now for out of Phoenix, appraisal waiver with a cap. And again, I've been in the industry for 13 years. I have no idea what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm still trying to figure it out. For that matter,
let's say we move, right. Say move into the terms and conditions, mm-hmm. and this seller says, hey, if you can do a 30-day close, that's worth $5,000 to me. I don't know if I should say yes to that or not. Like, is that worth it? Do I want to do that? So unless you're actually a real estate professional, or maybe, you're some sort of a real estate investor and you buy 2-3 homes a month, fine. Maybe you have the requisite knowledge and expertise. The average family, you want to talk to a professional to guide you on your bidding. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do it that way. So I think it's going to be a minority, but that's okay. We need early adopters, and we need to make sure that their experience is delightful. What we're trying to figure out is this something that consumers actually want? Is this something that's better than the experience today? Is this something that agents look at, and once they've gone through it, oh, this is a better experience than today? Like, Monte, you brought up, you had a listing where you had 60 offers. I just think about being the poor listing agent who has to put together a net sheet with 60 offers and present it to the client and explain them.
Yeah.
With our system, you don't have to do any of that.
That's what I'm saying. This is so much easier. Now, there's a little more homework, I think, on the front, because you're helping your client, first of all, wrap their mind about how it's going to work. Second of all, let's put a value to these benefits or negatives to how you perceive those. That's going to take a little bit more time, but it's taken. What's done extra on the front end is taking away all that extra hassle on the back end. It should be a done deal at that point then, based if everybody follows the guidelines that you guys have integrated.
Yeah, and again, right. the gal over here does talking about the flip side. The flip
well,
side.
You're usually
is
Miss Positive, so I'm surprised about that.
Because
we need to have the back and forth.
Yeah, you need to, because I love all people. I love all homes. I love all credit scenarios. I love all things mortgage finance. That's what I do for a living. So with all that to be said, I know we're just talking about Fannie and Freddie. So not every client qualifies. No. We just talked about. A couple days ago, on May 1st, Fannie and Freddie rolled out their fun new pricing adjustments, which there's a cost associated with all of that, right? And so some of the clients, depending upon, will want to go left versus wanting to go right. So we'll, again, continue to navigate through. But what I love and what I'm hearing, and as I continue to hear you as a marketer and as somebody that is thinking creative and bigger, right? I see that this is a win if the commission thing doesn't even roll out. Let's say it does not roll out. There is still a purpose. There's still a need for this particular thing. Now, I will say to you that the word auction in quotations means something to possibly you, possibly me, right? And so when I go down to the courthouse in quotations and I'm going to go bid on an auction, that means something. Cash, possibly, fast close, right? No wiggle room, blah, blah, blah. What you're saying to us now is there's a new definition of what is so-called an auction within your firm, where if the home does not appraise, they still can backpedal out of that, right? There is a true still contract associated with it, versus on the auction, there's really no appraisal when it comes to you buying it in auction, on the courthouse, right? So can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So the important thing there is, from the contract to close, we're not reinventing we're not doing anything different. It's identical to the process today, meaning you have a sales contract, you have all the negotiations, the inspections, all the things that you have to do between contract to close. The financing piece, of course, there's difference, like you pointed out, Carey Ann, because, we are saying buyer premiums are financeable, and you just got to deal with it, but otherwise it's identical. Meaning, when we talk about auction, what we're saying is the process of matching a buyer to seller. In other words, we are finished when we issue a sale contract. Or in Nashville's case, it's going to be a binding letter of intent. And we could get into some of the reasons why, because of the various forms and who owns them, who won't let us use them. But let's leave that to the side. We issue a binding letter of intent to all parties saying, hey, congratulations, Mr. Buyer. Congratulations, Ms. Seller. We have now matched you. That is ultimately what I think the value of an auction platform in real estate is. Things change 10, 20, 30 years from now, possibly. Are we building on that? No, we have no interest in that. That process has been really well worked out. It works fine. And other companies, other innovators will come along to try and modify that. Our intent is just matching buyer and seller. Because the current process, like I mentioned, was the most transparent, best way of doing things in 1930. It is not anymore. What we're proposing, we think, is the best way. So I think when it comes down to it, what we'll find is listing agents, the few select sellers, and again, this could be early adopters. I totally get it. Most agents aren't going to want to deal with this. That's totally fine. We're not condemning you. We don't hate you. We love you. We think you'll eventually come to this because it's easier, it's more transparent, it's more efficient. And I think this is ultimately the way we're all going to buy and sell things. And then on top of that, if the lawsuit goes away, I think it's going to go, we're pretty much going to be the only way to guarantee compensation left after that point. And I think having that alternative is really, really smart on the part of, of your brokerage, Monte. The fact that you're at least having this there, maybe 1%, 2% of your agents will actually go out and actively do this. Although I think in the pre-show, we're talking about the fact that we didn't really address this in depth right now. But the fact that as a real estate agent, I can go out and now start legitimately, without lying, without making anything up. I'm a full service agent. I'm going to do all of it, all of that you need as a seller. And I have a way for you to pay 0%. If that's not an advantage in listing present, I don't know what
totally
possibly
agree.
could.
I totally agree. If I were an agent, I would be taking that and running with it. I totally agree. And I think that the best defense is a better offense, Rob. And I think having this kind of an option is an offensive move to be ready to move rather than wait until we have to do something different. Let's go ahead and get familiar with it on the front end and hope it doesn't change as dramatically as it may happen. But in the meantime, we have now something special to get people's attention and a conversation piece, certainly.
Right. Yeah. So again, let's inspections are back to being cool, and people are doing those. Can I get that on this?
Yeah.
Can I my buyer still get an inspection on? Okay.
You ask some of the questions that our agents asked on the podcast, and I love that because I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, the simplest way to put this is they're the matchmaker. Once they match you, everything's the same. It's our contracts we're already familiar with. It's our processes, inspections, and appraisals that we're already familiar with. I like that it's not reinventing the wheel. It's matchmaking, and then once the match is made, our process is the same.
Yeah, and the other, from a fair housing, which we, all really want to stress about, I don't see a different, this name versus that name. I don't see that this person has 7 children versus 2 children, or the sob story in the letter, nothing, right? It's just the numbers are just what they are.
That's right.
It's very black and white, and it equals what you want or it doesn't, right? I mean, it's just a very straightforward process, which is clean.
And I do want to point this out because I was having a conversation with, like I mentioned, we're exploring California, and the agent really loved this piece of what we're doing. Fair housing is a real issue in the industry right now. I mean, as you guys probably are familiar, just a couple of years ago, we had this giant expose in New York Newsday, Long Island, where they discovered a lot of real estate agents violating fair housing. Right, by steering black clients, into one neighborhood and white clients to another neighborhood, and we know like the buyer love letters that has come under some scrutiny now for fair housing violations because there's something to be said for like, look, we love your house, we really like to buy it, and look at us, we're a white couple with 3 kids. I mean, like we know that the buyers and the buyer agents are not doing this out of any malicious or any race. You know what I mean? We know that, and yet the perception could exist. On our platform, it's anonymous bidding. The buyer, sure, we know who the buyer agent is, but the buyer's identity is completely hidden until the match is made. Once we have a match, then yes, of course, here's the buyer, right? And do you care that the buyer's name is Mustafa? No, you should not.
Yeah, but what about
here's the buyer being the buyer?
Sure. What about, let's talk about, do we care that it's cash? I assume there's a box where I check cash versus finance,
That's right?
That's right. And so
there's an extra value given to that.
Okay.
On the form.
I mean, between you and me, I don't think cash is anything
that's because,
to write home about.
Yeah, but everybody uses you for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why that is.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm a little scary looking. I don't know. So, but if they do the finance piece, are you requiring them to upload a letter of some sort within your system, or how does that work to even confirm that even though I push that button, that button is actually a truthful statement?
So I'm going to give you a two-part answer. One part is right now we are not. We don't, because remember, in order to bid, you have to be represented by a buyer agent.
Okay.
And I don't know any buyer agents these days who would bother going to that far without verifying that their client is in fact pre-approved. Right. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Second piece, part of that answer is, and something maybe, you could help me with, Carey, but we've been looking for mortgage lenders who have data APIs. Because boy, it would be so nice if we could say, hey, we don't have to disclose the name or the identity of the buyer, but we obviously when they register, we know.
Sure.
Could we get a data feed from a lender saying, yes, this person is pre-approved up to 550, right? We don't have to disclose any of it, but then when that buyer agent goes and makes a bid on part of that, the behalf of the buyer, we know, oh, you know what, you're about to bid 575. That's over the pre-approved amount. You might want to go back and see what you can do about it.
Similar to what happened when Ribbon was in town, right? They would ask for that letter and they wouldn't allow for that price to go over because of that number. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a piece of paper. So people sadly can rewrite that piece of paper all day, up, down, left, right, just to kind of move in a forward direction, which is kind of sad because there is always an out. And I feel like that needs to be changed, but that's a different topic for a different day.
But I like Chrissy's overview, though. It's just a matchmaking. And then we're still going to have the challenges that might follow that match. It still has to get to the finish line, but it's a transparent matchmaking.
So how long do I have to find my match?
You
determine
to the
that.
listing agent and the seller, correct.
Okay.
And I think the strategy, the different sellers, different agents could pursue different strategies, right? Some might say, you know what, I just want to explore the market, really see. So let's do a 60-day auction.
Whoa.
Sure, if that's what you want. Here's the thing. If I'm a bidder, if I'm a serious buyer, I'm not coming in and placing a bid on day 3 when I know the auction won't be over for another 53 days, right?
Right.
So I think, again, I've done a bunch of research around this. Based on what my research is, the ideal seems to be doing something between a 3 to 7 day auction, right? With a longer pre-auction marketing period, right?
Correct.
So again, keep in mind, we're the MLS. We don't have rules like clear cooperation policy, coming soon rules. We don't have any of those things. It's your decision as the listing agent, talking with your client, what is the best marketing strategy for you. In fact, I think we're about to implement a new feature that could go where the auction could be as short as, I believe it's 4 hours.
Oh, well.
So if you really want to do a same day auction, you know what, everybody? We're going to list it today. We're going to hold the auction 10 days from now, and it's going to be a 4-hour window. So tour the house, get all your ducks in a row, get your pre-approval, get your everything ready, and we're going to go fast and furious. We don't dictate that. That's up to the listing agent and the seller after discussion. What do you want to do, right? And if at the end of that 4-hour period, you didn't hit reserve, guess what? You don't have to sell. You could go back, talk it over the strategy again. Hey, next time let's do a 3-day auction. Maybe that's a little bit better. Whatever you guys want.
The flexibility is interesting, though, because then you can accommodate your seller if they really want that 4 hours, you can say, all right.
Or it doesn't work. They can always just go back just to the conventional route and sell it through MLS and change the price if they need to or whatever. It empowers, I think, both sides.
And the home is still on MLS currently, right? Always. As we're navigating through this auction site, it's still listed.
Yeah.
So technically they can have bids going on and get offers over here, right? 2 lanes.
That's right. Okay. That's right. And in fact, we're pretty open about that too. Like if you're on DPX and you say to, buyer agents, hey, listen, if you want to bid on this, if you want to make an offer, go through the, decenter PX. But you know what? Some agent says, I'm not dealing with that. It's auction. It's weird. Here's a traditional classic offer. And it's a really good one. As a listing agent, as we know, you're legally and ethically bound to present that offer to your client. Present the offer. Client says, boy, that's a really good offer. Let's take it. My take is, go ahead and take that offer. Right? We want you to do what's in your client's best interest. All that we ask is, please just come back and tell us what you accepted so we can update the data. That's it. Do you know what I mean? Now, you do it that way, the client should recognize they're going to pay a commission, because the whole commission waiver 0% thing is only if you do it through us, because we have the buyer premium model. RealTrax doesn't have that. So as long as the client is aware of all this and says, yeah, it's still a really good offer, I'm going to take that offer. Cool. We're happy for you. Congratulations. Please just come back and tell us what those numbers were, what those terms were, so we can update the data. That's literally it.
So, Rob, this sounds amazing, and I think it's really exciting if all of it adds up. So I'm double checking. I've been texting back and forth with Fanny right now, trying to work through some things, because we also have QM rules and compliance ease rules. So we have to kind of navigate through all of that. So I'm double checking on some other things. But my question is, I know to build a site as grand and as fabulous as yours costs a little bit of money. So how do you get paid?
Great question.
So that's a great question. So our business model is we take a platform fee from both sides of 25 basis points. So that's 0.25%, so total of 0.5. What that means, I guess, for the agents involved is, in reality, when we pay you through our platform, you'll be getting 2.25 instead of 2.5, or whatever the prevailing rates are. I think when we spoke, Monte, you said the prevailing commission in Nashville Metro is around 5%. So it'll be that. Having said that, we start high because that number can go as low as 5 basis points, right? Based upon basically usage of the site. The more you use decenter to do transactions, more reward tokens you will earn, and more tokens you have, more of a discount you get.
So we're incentivized by using your platform.
That's right. And since those tokens also result in votes on the MLS rules itself, because we don't have a board of directors that promulgate rules, it's the members themselves who do it. Again, technology exists to enable this. We don't need to be stuck with, ancient governance models. It starts off at that, 0.25. My hope is that eventually every agent on our platform will be paying the 0.05 basis points, which is, come on, guys.
Nothing. That's nothing.
We got to keep the lights on. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And by the way, the site is entirely free to join, entirely free to use. And sure, you do have to pay at, when you have a commission check in hand. That seems like a pretty
That's the only time you pay. Chrissy, I know you had some questions. Do we feel like, I want to always look from the perspective of somebody just sitting down here watching the first time. Do you feel that's been conveyed, or are there some questions you want to make sure you hit on?
Honestly.
Great questions, by the way, Carey Ann.
I'm always trying to think of the end user there.
Seriously.
I'm looking at my list here and thinking, okay, Carey Ann asked that. We're good. We went through most of the list, actually. One of the things I like the best is obviously the transparency of it. I like that, we have people coming on at the forefront of it. So our feedback is valuable. The tokens thing, that makes sense to me, because of course you want feedback from those who are using the system the most. So I think that's very cool that, your voice is heard as someone using the platform. And there's, like I said, just a learning curve to it, like anything else. But I think I think with the proper presentation of this, consumers will see the win-win of either side of this. And for agents, why would you not want another feather in your cap and that ability to say, hey, I can do something that maybe someone else can't? Differentiate yourself from the crowd.
That's going to be huge, I think, for those who take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, and I'm texting away. I'm getting to the bottom of it all to make sure that we got to the end result there. Because, the struggle that even if the agencies allow, that's one part of it, right? That's one part of it. But there are Tennessee laws that we have to follow from a fee standpoint. And so that's where we struggle with even the mortgage insurance. When the mortgage insurance is too high, even though this makes complete sense and the payment is so much lower and it's a huge win, we're told we can't move in a forward direction. And so that's what we want to double check too. So this is a huge win. If not, and you can only finance part of it, could you break up part of it being financed and the other part being cash? Or is it a full finance?
Sure.
Yeah.
You can pay for the whole thing in cash if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're simply saying that auction premiums can be financed. You don't have to.
But could you break it up? Could part of it be financed in and part not?
I don't see any reason why it couldn't be.
Okay.
But that would be a real interesting scenario. I would love to know. But again, based on my reading of the rules, my reading of the laws, I don't see any reason. I only want to finance $5,000 of the 25. I'd rather just pay the other 20 out of pocket because if I finance, I have to pay interest on it. I don't really want to pay interest on a fee. That is a perfectly reasonable approach for a buyer to do.
Yeah. And, some of the loans that we talk about, it's not for every household, right? And so this may not be for every, buyer either, and or seller, right? And so I do find that there's an audience for everyone, and just kind of working towards finding that it'll be a win, for our future, real estate agents. And I think any tool is a win, don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think it empowers, people do business with who they know, like, and trust. And that part of that trust development is the feeling that somebody has authority or has experience, has an understanding. And part of that equation is what tools do they have in their tool bag there that will, show them that they're different than the other 18,000 realtors in Middle Tennessee. So I just think this is a win-win-win-win to also just the confidence. One of the reasons I'm excited about this, Rob, is this gives me confidence that should there be a big shift because of the lawsuit, that our agents are going to be equipped for that shift, okay, for that change, for that meteorite, however you want to describe that, okay, that they're going to be equipped. And that's my job as the broker, is to make sure our family of professionals is equipped for whatever that market looks like. That's why Carey Ann, other than I love her as a person, but that's why she's part of this family here of professionals. This who we recommend is because she has always got that mindset as well. How can I get this round ball through this square? Whatever the need is.
Right.
It's being able to shift in today's market, today's world. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. So you better you better have as many tools in your tool belt as you possibly can to differentiate you. Why does somebody want to use you? Because you've just shared with them another wow factor that's different. Nobody else has shared with them that they could do.
Right. And I think that piece right there is a win. So thank you, Rob, for sharing today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I do want to mention one last thing, because this came up in a conversation with an agent a couple of weeks ago, which is one of the things that DPX does allow you to do in a declining market where the market is shifting downward, right, which is what we're living through right now, is it really lets you, I don't want to say avoid. Avoid's the wrong word because you can't avoid it. But it lets you think about the price reduction conversation in an entirely new way, right? So as we know, no agent I've ever met, I've ever dealt with, likes to have the price reduction conversation with a seller. Because oftentimes, and you know this, Monte, you know this, Chrissy, you know this, Carey Ann. I mean, oftentimes the client just thinks, well, you're talking to me about price reduction because you're incompetent, or because you have some ulterior motive. You just want to sell fast and you can't market my home effectively enough. With what we're presenting, you could literally go to the client at the end of the auction and say, listen, we got 30 bids, right? We have 2,500 views on Zillow. We got 30 bids. This is the market. This isn't me telling you to do a price reduction because I'm trying to take advantage of you. Because, do you know what I mean? It just allows, talk about sort of maintenance of that trust, where you're not just going and saying, hey, you just really need to a $10,000 price reduction. Why? Well, because your home was overpriced. Well, why is that? Do you know what I mean? Like you just,
it takes all that
totally different conversation.
Totally. I get that. I love that part.
And I do think that is something that more and more agents will find. Again, the few who try, the early adopters, the first time I think they have that conversation with a seller and the seller goes, yeah, that makes sense. Let's just take the high bid now. I think that's a game changer. And I can't wait for that to happen. And I would like, hopefully you guys will have them on this podcast, talk about the experience. I would love to talk to them on mine. Like, what was that like? Because it is such a game changer for the client relationship, for the trust relationship. And I just think it's a better way. Is what it comes down to. Totally agree. Rob,
how can we make sure people know how to get into DPX? How do they find you guys? Can you share that with us?
Sure. So a couple of things. Number one, we are a very young startup company. So we're live right now in Phoenix, Arizona. We will be going live in Nashville, Tennessee very shortly, within, I would say, a couple of weeks. But if you go to jointhecenterpx.com, if you're an agent and you're not in Nashville, you'll find more information and a place to just kind of tell us where you're from, and then we will let you know the minute we launch into your market.
And how do you spell that? Nashville, I'm sorry, how do you spell that?
Join Decenter PX, and the Decenter is DECENTRE.px.com. Just think of it as decent real estate PX. It's the British spelling of decenter because we are trying to decentralize things.
Perfect.
I'm also on Twitter at Rob Hahn, so at Rob Hahn, ROBHAHN. And I have a Substack. You could Google Notorious Rob and you'll probably find me there. And I'll probably start talking more about Decenter and DPX. And then finally, if you just want to know, like decenterpx.com is live. It's open. Come in, check it out. Like I said, even if we're not live in your market, you come in and check out all the listings, all the things that are happening. There's FAQs there and answers a lot of questions. You can read our rules and policies, which, like I mentioned, we have very few, and they're like 10 pages. And we're just not in the business of telling brokers and agents how to run their business. That is not what we think the MLS should be doing.
Very good.
And let me just share real quickly, for those of you that aren't a follower yet of Rob Hahn, regardless of whether you get involved in DPX or not, I do highly recommend that you start following this gentleman and just considering his perspective of some really critical topics for our future. I just highly recommend. And Rob, thank you for spending so much time educating and please tell Sonny thank you for proofreading all the efforts that you're putting in out there for us, so that they're really awesome pieces of work. I just really look forward to everyone you send out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monte. Again, you're so and Carey Ann, thank you for all your questions. You had like the best questions.
Chrissy
me. Is also, but
absolutely.
Man, today on this, it's such great questions.
There you go.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Well, we look forward to continuing our talks and doing lots of business together in the near future. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Come back next week to the talk of Music City Real Estate.